Okay everyone, it's Voodoo 51292 and welcome to our second episode of Voodoos Thoughts. And today I'm going to be talking about something that is not related to games actually, for the first time in the series, even though it's only the second episode. What I'm going to be talking about today is related to music and specifically one band in one genre. So to start off, if you know or don't know maybe from things I've said in the past or some of the shirts, for instance, that I've worn on in some of my previous videos, I am a fan of a very unique genre of music. Some people call it hardcore music, some people call it screamo music, whatever you want to call it. I'm a big fan of it, and that is what it is. It's a small genre. It's obviously like a niche genre. Not a lot of people like it. It's kind of a small scene, but I happen to like it. And today I want to talk about the band that I'm actually wearing the shirt for right now, Asking Alexandria. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about their situation. What do I mean by situation? Well, yes, they just came out with a new album this week, but also what I really want to address is if you know anything about the band, you probably heard that on March the 29th, which was not very long ago, maybe 10 days or so ago, they played a show in Seattle, Washington. And basically, let me run down for you what happened in that show. Basically, their lead vocalist, Danny Worsnop, if you know or don't know, he has a serious problem with drugs and alcohol. I mean, it's bad. It's really, really bad. It has been bad. I think since they even came on the scene in 2009, and yeah, it's an awful addiction problem he has. And basically at this Seattle show, it all came to a head, and he was so messed up. I'm almost 100% sure he was drunk, but I think he was also on something else, drugs or something else. But whatever he was on, he was messed up on it, and he couldn't even do the show. And it went way beyond that. He actually he couldn't even function. Like, he kept falling over on stage. He was messing up, obviously, all the lyrics and the timing of the songs. He had no idea what the hell was going on. I don't even think he knew where he was. He was being a complete asshole. He actually went crowd surfing or something. Somebody reached for the mic and he punched them directly in the face. He was just basically babbling on stage during songs. And it got to the point where the band, the rest of the band, started calling him out on stage. Bruce, I forget his last name, but one of their guitarists, Bruce, is the pretty much, he's the founder of the band. He was the one that founded it all, so he's kind of at the head of the band. And he was calling Danny out on stage. He was asking the crowd to flip him off. Danny actually left the stage a couple of times right in the middle of the set. He just walked off. At one point, or a couple of points actually, they had to have fans from the audience come up on stage and do the vocal parts just so they could finish the show, because Danny wouldn't come back on stage. It actually got to a point where that happened, where he walked off and they had 3 guys from the audience come up on the stage and do the vocals, and Danny came back on stage after, really pissed off about it, and finished the song, and then the rest of the band basically just walked off the stage. The entire band, except for Bruce, just picked up their instruments and walked directly off stage. They couldn't take it anymore, and I mean, it was awful. It was absolutely god awful to watch this. And I give so many props to Bruce, because he was able somehow, through all of the crap that was going on, to actually keep the show going and keep the crowd into it. And it was amazing how he was able to do it. It really was. He had extreme composure. He was, I can't really explain how he was able to do it, but he, huge props to Bruce, because if it weren't for him, that entire show would have collapsed. And I mean, it pretty much did. But he even gave away his guitar to somebody in the crowd. It was his idea to have fans come up and do the vocals. He also promised a free show. They were going to go back to Seattle and do a free show for him. So he actually was able to get the band back on stage after they had completely walked off. Bruce was able to get them back. The their tour director or whatever was telling Bruce to get off the stage, you know, that they were that they were calling the show off, and he refused to leave. You know, he said that people paid money to see him play, and he was able to get the rest of the band back on stage to finish. Danny wound up walking off again, but nobody cared at that point. The crowd was flicking him off. It was just awful. It really was. And so what do I have to say? Well, first of all, Danny needs rehab, obviously, and you know, Bruce on stage said pretty much with Danny standing there for the crowd to support him as they got Danny through rehab. So obviously Bruce and the rest of the band wants to get this guy some help. He needs help, you know, and let me tell you something. If I was Bruce in that band, I understand Danny's his best friend, and I mean, Danny's an excellent vocalist. He's one of the best there is out there right now. But if I was Bruce, I wouldn't care who it was. He'd have been out of my band that night. There wouldn't have been any question about it. You go out there and do what Danny did, I mean, he would have been gone. So, you know, but, you know, obviously the situation's a little bit more complicated than that right now. But I'm just saying, if I was in that band, if that guy was my best friend, even if he was my brother, I don't care. You go out there and completely ruin an entire show and basically smear your band's name across the entire globe, because these guys do world tours, and now the entire world is able to see footage of this. He would have been gone. And, you know, would the vocals and all been the same? No, they wouldn't. But, you know, sometimes you have to pull the trigger, and you know, obviously this has been going on with Danny for a while, never to this point, but this would have been the point. This would have been it. He'd have been gone, but he's not. He's still with them, and he's still on tour with them. And from what I've heard, he has been sober at every show since. You know, I can't confirm that, but that's what the things I've heard. But, you know, this has got to stop, because, you know, I've been to 3 of their shows already. I've seen them live 3 times, all in New Orleans. I actually got the shirt I'm wearing at one of their shows at the House of Blues, and I didn't want to say anything this early, but I'm going to bring it up here. There is a chance that Tyler, Dave, and I are going to possibly go to Houston to see the band's Warped Tour this June, and they're playing there, so obviously that'll be my 4th time seeing them. Here's my deal. I love the band. Their new album is really good, and I really like them. But if this stuff continues with Danny, and if we go to that show in Houston, and it's anything even resembling what I saw happen in Seattle, I'm done. I'm not going to be able to support this band anymore, and it's a shame, because I know it's not their fault. It's not Bruce's fault. It's not the rest of the band's fault necessarily. It's Danny, but I'm not going to be able to keep spending my money and, you know, supporting these guys, spending money on their tickets and their albums and merchandise, so that Danny can take that money and go buy drugs and alcohol. I'm not going to do it, and you know, it's a real shame, because like I said, they're one of my favorites of all time in this genre, and you know, it seems like in a time right now where a lot of bands are starting to sell out, this band comes out with an album this week that's anything but selling out, and they actually got heavier from their first album, if anything. So I really like that, but at the same time, you know, I'm trying to get into this music, but I know that the guy that I'm singing along with and trying to get in with is basically a complete tool. And, you know, so I really hope that this guy gets help. Now, some things I've been hearing are that, oh, well, Danny got the message after Seattle and his life's turned around. Well, I don't believe that, because it's been, what, 10 days maybe? Today's April 7th. It's been like 9 days since that happened. When you have that severe of a problem for that long, you don't just get over it in 9 days. I'm sorry. Maybe he's in a shock factor right now where he's like, whoa, I can't believe that actually happened to me. I'm not touching this stuff again. But that's going to wear off, and he's going to relapse. He needs professional help. He needs to go to rehab. And I really hope Bruce and the rest of those guys are serious and get this guy help, because not only from a musician standpoint, but as a human being, this guy is going to die before he's 35 if this continues. So I don't believe that. Maybe he's been sober, like I said, for the past few shows, but you know, he's not cured. It's been 9 days. You don't get better in 9 days without any help. So no, he needs help. And but I keep saying that, you know, it's not the band's fault and it's all Danny. But here's a question. You know, where the hell have were Bruce and the rest of these band guys before the show in Seattle, when Danny was drinking, doing these drugs, whatever he was doing? Where the hell was the rest of the band? I mean, they're on tour in a bus. Where the hell did Danny go to do all this stuff? You know, it's impossible for me to believe that the rest of the band didn't know what he was doing and that he was getting messed up before this show. So where the hell were they when he was getting messed up before this show? Where the hell, you know, why didn't they stop him from doing that? At that point, especially if he's Bruce's best friend, I don't care what you have to do. I don't care if you've got to punch this guy directly in his face. I don't care if you have to sit on him. I don't care if you threaten him and say, listen, you take one more drink and you're out of this band. I don't care what you have to do. At that point, you separate him and that bottle or that pipe or whatever the hell he had. You get that shit away from him. And my question is, like I said, obviously these guys had to know what Danny was doing before this show. I mean, there's no way he got this messed up before the show and no one noticed. I mean, that's bullshit. So, you know, I keep saying it's not their fault, but at the same time, you know, where were they? Where have they been for the last 2 years? Why has it taken all the way to this point, to the point where he basically had a giant collapse on stage and their whole show got ruined? Why did it take doing that for the rest of the band to get this guy in rehab? I mean, Danny's been like this, nowhere near this level, but he's been like this since, you know, they popped onto the scene in '09. And who knows how long he was doing this stuff before that. So, I mean, why has it taken this long, and why has it gotten to this point now where, you know, Danny basically makes an idiot of himself that he'll never be able to wipe that reputation away? It's going to be extremely hard. It's going to be with him for the rest of his life. Why did it take that point for these guys to say he needs to go to rehab? This should have happened years ago. And I don't know if Bruce is such a great friend. Because, like I said, if he was a great friend, he would have gotten Danny in rehab a long time ago, and he would not allow him to get messed up like this before this show. He would have been with him. He would have made sure that Danny didn't touch that bottle or whatever he touched. Bruce should have been right by his side, making sure that he did it. He should be right by Danny's side physically, making sure that this guy gets his life back on track. And that didn't happen. You know, not only Bruce, but the rest of the band and the managers and everybody else associated with this band allowed Danny to get this messed up before the show, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So, you know, I don't understand that, and, you know, but it has gotten to this point now, and it's a bad point. It's a really bad point in their, you know, right now for them in their band's career. And it's the last thing they needed when they're starting off a new tour, trying to promote a brand new album. So, anyway, that'll do it for part 1. When I come back with part 2, we're going to wrap things up here in our first Voodoos Thoughts episode, branching out from gaming into the music industry.